So, the criminal justice system consists of three main components. You have law enforcement, you have the court system, and corrections. And each of these have their own responsibilities. So, law enforcement. It consists of local, state, and the federal agencies. These are the people that are responsible for making arrests. They're responsible for gaining enough evidence to make that arrest and are responsible for giving Miranda rights and booking a suspect. After law enforcement, you have the court system. This consists of the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, jury, and the suspect. So in this stage, this is trial stage, this is sentencing stage, this is the process where evidence is brought out to find out whether or not the suspect is guilty or innocent. Then you have corrections. This is, I guess, in a way focused on the sentencing stage. After arrest, after the court, you are sentenced to whatever the judge perceives. Right? So you have jail, you have prison, you have parole, probation. It depends. So the correction focuses on the part where the suspect is being incarcerated. Okay, so problems within the system. The criminal justice system undergoes many problems that result in the system not functioning as efficiently as the government hoped for. So you have ethical issues, you have sentencing issues, law enforcement issues. We have barriers everywhere. So, within the last year or so, you've noticed law enforcement officers have been blamed for police brutality and for corrupting our systems. With police brutality, people are always twisting stories. So many people will say that an officer intentionally attacked a person because they were African American descent or because they were Latino or something. The stories are everywhere now, which in all honesty to me is total BS, which is, I love my law enforcement officers. I have family, but it's just still nonsense. So take the Ferguson case or the death of Michael Brown, for example. The two events alone caused society to tremble and bust out into riots. My opinion towards reaction remain of my own, but events like this have resulted in false hope for justice system because people believe that there is no justice. As I was writing this report, the Sandra Bland, however you say her name, case was going ballistic. Her face, her name was everywhere. And it is giving our criminal justice system a very bad name. And the list just goes on for the problems within the system. Not just police brutality, but sentencing. How many people believe that sentencing is wrong for the crime? People getting more time than what people are getting time for crimes that shouldn't go with it. You commit robbery and you're suddenly facing 20 years when someone with murder can face about 10. So the problems within the system, they're everywhere. Right. So the Uniform Crime Report, or UCR, is a program consisting of about 18,000 law enforcement agencies, and you have local, state, federal, that voluntarily report data on crimes within their surrounding areas, which are then collected by the FBI themselves and used to give a percentage rate on the crime happening in the United States. So basically, it's just a giant statistic of crime within our nation. How many cities are witnessing theft? How many cities are witnessing murder? It's a good program, but everybody knows not all crimes are reported, nor is every crime reported by cops. If a cop sees a murder scene that was intentionally meant for just theft, they're going to report the murder, not the theft. So the UCR reports what is seen, what is known. But what about stuff that is not known? So the criminal justice system now and then, we all know that our technology has advanced beyond what it has been in the past. Booking process is way much faster, way much easier than it was before. We now have new technology that enables cops to look up a license plate to see if it was involved in some type of crime. Technology alone has allowed the criminal justice system to evolve. Besides technology, I mean, we now have the Miranda warning, which many of us know. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Back then, officers did not have to read people their rights. I mean, they could just arrest someone without them knowing what their rights were. And even then, our court systems alone have advanced. I mean, we have several stages of process. The judge's reliable decision and reliable evidence. I mean, they even have a jury to help make that decision. Back then, the system wasn't as advanced. I mean, we had a system, but it didn't compare to what we have today. And then even then, besides court system, besides arrest, besides our rights, punishment was, I want to say punishment was worse back then. Now punishments are reasonable. You have a bunch of people that make a decision, and then you have the judge who makes the higher decision. I mean, people can sit here and face a limited amount of time, but the sentencing is still going to be reasonable. Back then, it was more of inappropriate punishments. I mean, the system wasn't as reliable. Justice wasn't served as much. I mean, if you take the time where MLK was still here, where the racism was at its highest, I mean, the punishment for black people was not, like, how do you say it? It was not appropriate. I mean, black people were seen as what they were, and some were just purposely taken to jail because the officer was like, hey, you're black. Okay, time to get booked, time to get processed, even sometimes abused. So our system definitely has upgraded, has advanced since the past. Okay. After establishing the Metropolitan Police Act of 1829, Robert Peel created what we know as the 9 Peelian Principles, which according to Lewis meant essentially that the police are the people are the police, and crime prevention is possible without heavy intrusion into citizens' lives. I mean, today, the time that these principles were created does not compare to how much we have evolved today. I mean, if they were created in today's world rather than Peel's time, then perhaps the principles would have evolved with it. More than likely, they would have evolved. So today, the principles are a general guideline for law enforcement agencies and officers. People are the police, and police are the people explains their society today. I read something online earlier today on Facebook that read, cops are criminals and criminals are victims. And in a way, this relates to Peel's principles, but society has managed to alter them to make law enforcement officers into the people they are supposed to be arresting. So basically, law enforcement are now the suspects, and the people are now law enforcement that are in a way trying to arrest the police for doing what they do. I mean, police brutality cases are everywhere, and that in a way can relate to Peel's principles himself. As a suspect, you have to undergo steps. You have to undergo a couple of procedures, and that all starts with a criminal act. I mean, once you commit a criminal act, you're considered a suspect. So after you commit a criminal act, there is law enforcement. And law enforcement conducts an arrest, they conduct an investigation, and it would all lead to your booking phase. And in order for an officer to make arrest, they must come up with enough evidence to conduct an arrest. After the arrest, you are read your rights and you are taken to police station to go through booking. And within the booking phase, you have photography, you have fingerprinting, you have personal information, you have bail. Everybody knows mugshots. Everybody knows that once you commit a crime, your privacy is no longer your own. You have to forfeit your DNA, you have to forfeit fingerprinting, and then you have to give up your personal information. And if you're lucky enough, you are able to post bail. And if you have a warrant out for your arrest, if you have charges that are in process, you will not be able to undergo bail. You will not be able to post any kind of bail. So after the arrest and booking phases, you have to go through courtroom procedures. And the courtroom steps can be broken down into the arraignment. You have plea bargaining, the preliminary hearing, trial, sentencing, and then the appeal. The arraignment is the initial hearing. This is where the suspect hears what he or she was arrested for. Then you have plea bargaining, which is when the government offers a plea deal to the suspect to avoid trial or to soften the sentence. So basically, the person pleads guilty, admits that he did something, and in return, there is no trial, or their sentence would be much more lighter than what it would be if they pled innocent. And you have a preliminary hearing, which is basically a mini trial. This is where evidence is brought forth. Witnesses speak on behalf of the prosecutor, behalf of the defendant. And then you have the main trial. The trial is a stage where the defendant is proven guilty or proven innocent. This is a stage where the judge decides the sentence. This is a stage where the jury comes into place, where they hear all the evidence, where they hear everything to provide whether or not the suspect is guilty, whether or not the suspect is innocent. After the trial, you have the sentencing phase. And this is the part where the judge makes a crucial decision for their sentencing, for their punishment, for the crime they committed. And after the sentencing, you have the appeal. And that is an optional phase. And if the defendant feels that they were wrongly accused, they can make an appeal. And that solely depends on the defendant. And if everything goes into place, the case later leads to corrections.